Okay, so today we're jumping straight into Genesis, chapter 49. Imagine this scene. Jacob, Israel, he's old, nearing the end of his life. He gathers his 12 sons. And this isn't just saying goodbye, it's something else entirely. He's about to make these huge pronouncements about their futures.
Exactly. This is a really pivotal moment in Genesis.
Yeah.
Chapter 49 contains Jacob's final words to his sons, and they're incredibly significant. And like you said, it's not all warm fuzzies. Some are blessings, sure, but others are quite harsh criticisms, and many are loaded with symbolism about the future tribes.
Right. So our goal here is to really unpack what Jacob says about each son. What does the text tell us about their destinies, the destinies of the 12 tribes? We'll look at the specific words, the imagery, the consequences he outlines. It paints this really complex picture of a family that's about to become a nation.
And it starts very formally. Jacob calls them together, saying, gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in days to come. So right off the bat, it's explicitly framed as prophecy about the future. He tells them, assemble and listen. Listen to your father Israel. This is serious business.
Okay, so who's first? The firstborn, Reuben. Jacob starts by acknowledging his status, doesn't he? Calls him my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength. Sounds pretty good. Excelling in honor, excelling in power.
It sounds like the highest praise, yeah.
Yeah.
But then comes this immediate sharp turn. Jacob says, despite all that, turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. And the text gives a very specific reason why.
Ah, yes. The alert.
You went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it. Boom. There's a direct link in the text between that past action and losing his preeminence. No ambiguity there.
Wow, okay. So, no holding back. After Reuben, he deals with Simeon and Levi together.
He does, yeah. The text groups them. He calls them brothers, and right away connects them with violence. Their swords, he says, are weapons of violence.
And he mentions specific things they did.
Yes, the text points to them having killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Jacob's reaction is, well, it's strong. He says he wants no part of their council or assembly.
He curses their anger, right?
Explicitly. He curses their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. And then comes the consequence he foretells for them.
Which is?
Scattering. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. So the text presents their future disposal as a direct result of this violent nature.
Okay, so firstborn loses status, two others are cursed and scatter for violence. But then Judah, this feels like a major shift.
It absolutely is. The tone changes completely. For Judah, it's overwhelmingly positive, prophetic of leadership, dominance. Jacob says, your brothers will praise you, your father's sons will bow down to you, and your hand will be on the neck of your enemies.
And the imagery used for Judah is really striking. The lion.
Oh, yeah. Very powerful. A lion's cub returning from the prey. He crouches like a lion, like a lioness.
Yeah.
It's this picture of, strength, authority, maybe even a bit fearsome, but settled power.
But the really key part is the promise of rulership, isn't it?
Definitely. This is huge. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. That speaks directly to kingship, lasting authority.
And it continues until this figure arrives. Until he comes to whom it belongs and the obedience of the nations is his. Who is that supposed to be, according to the source?
Well, the text here just calls him he to whom it belongs, or sometimes translated Shiloh. It's presented as this key future figure tied to Judah's line, someone who will culminate that promised authority and gain the obedience of nations. It's a point of future hope or expectation embedded right there in Judah's blessing.
And then there's all that imagery of abundance for Judah, wine, grapes. It seems almost over the top.
It really is quite extravagant, isn't it? Tying his donkey to a vine, washing his clothes in wine, eyes darker than wine, teeth whiter than milk. It's this incredibly rich picture of prosperity, almost excessive, specifically linked to viticulture. And it's all tied to the tribe that's destined for leadership. Fascinating connection there.
Okay, so after that powerful prophecy for Judah, we move on to Zebulun. What's his story?
Zebulun's is much more geographical, pretty straightforward. The text says he will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships, and that his border will extend toward Sidon. So it defines his territory, connects him to the sea, to trade, that sort of thing.
And Issachar, he gets compared to a donkey.
Yeah, a raw-boned donkey lying down between two saddlebags.
Yeah.
It's an image of, well, maybe strength, but burden strength. Or perhaps preferring rest. The text explains why. He sees how good is his resting place and how pleasant is his land.
So he chooses comfort, and that leads to...
Leads to servitude, basically. Because he likes his comfort zone. The text says he will bend his shoulder to the burden and submit to forced labor. It's presented as a trade-off. Comfort over freedom.
Dan is interesting. Kind of a dual prophecy, it seems. First, justice.
Right. Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel.
Mm.
That sounds positive, like a leadership or adjudicating role.
But then the imagery shifts dramatically.
It really does. He becomes a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. It suggests a different kind of tactic, doesn't it? More subtle, maybe guerrilla warfare, tripping up enemies rather than meeting them head on.
And Jacob throws in a personal line right there, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. Just suddenly, I look for your deliverance, O Lord. It feels very personal, like a sigh or a prayer slipped into the middle of these heavy pronouncements, maybe reflecting the difficulty of it all.
Okay, what about Gad? His prophecy seems focused on fighting.
Yes, conflict and, ultimately, victory. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, Jacob says, but he will attack them at their heels. So the picture is one of facing aggression, but successfully fighting back, hitting them on the retreat, essentially, overcoming the attack.
Asher's sounds much nicer, short and sweet.
Very much so. A picture of real abundance. Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Prosperity, providing quality goods. Simple, positive.
And Naphtali, more natural imagery there.
Yeah, quite elegant. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. It suggests, freedom, grace, speed perhaps, and fruitfulness producing something beautiful or desirable.
Which brings us to Joseph, and wow, his blessing it's extensive. It feels very much tied to his whole life story.
Absolutely. It's the longest by far and incredibly detailed. He's called a fruitful vine near a spring, whose branches climb over a wall. That just screams abundance, growth, overcoming obstacles, and the text directly references his past suffering. With bitterness, archers attacked him. They shot at him with hostility. It acknowledges what he went through.
But it makes clear his survival wasn't just him, right?
Exactly. It credits divine help entirely. But his bow remains steady because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. It goes on, because of your father's God who helps you, because of the Almighty who blesses you. His resilience is framed as God-given strength.
And the blessings themselves are just cosmic in scope.
They really are. Blessings of the heavens above, blessings of the deep that lies below, blessings of the breast and womb, everything. Jacob even says his own blessings for Joseph surpass the blessings of nature, the ancient mountains and age-old hills. It's extraordinary. And what's so striking is how the text puts his suffering right next to this incredible, over-the-top blessing. The hardship is part of the setup for the immense favor he receives.
And Jacob finishes by calling him the prince. Let all these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers, clearly singling him out for exceptional status and favor.
Okay, one more son.
Yeah.
Benjamin. What's his image?
Benjamin gets a pretty fierce one, too. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf.
Mm.
In the morning, he devours the prey. In the evening, he divides the plunder. It depicts a warlike, aggressive tribe, constantly engaged in conflict and spoils.
So after going through all 12, the text itself kind of summarizes things. It does. It pulls back and says, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. It reinforces that these weren't random words. They were specific, tailored pronouncements meant to define the character and destiny of each tribe.
And then, having delivered these powerful words, Jacob turns to practical matters, his burial.
Right. The prophecy part is done. Now his final instructions. He wants to be gathered to my people, and he's very specific about where. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan.
And the text reminds us why that place matters.
Yeah, it points out this is the burial plot which Abraham bought specifically for this purpose. And it lists the family already there. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried, there Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried, and there I buried Leah. It emphasizes that connection to the ancestors, the land, the promise. It even notes again, the field was bought from the Hittites.
And the chapter ends very simply with Jacob's death.
It's a straightforward account. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. The end of an era, right after delivering these foundational words.
So to wrap up our deep dive into Genesis 49, we've walked through Jacob's final powerful address. It's this amazing mix of prophecy, blessing, criticism. And according to the text, these words laid out the future characteristics, the struggles, the roles, the destinies of the 12 tribes. We saw the firstborns fall, the violence scattered, Judah's rise to kingship, Joseph's incredible blessing after suffering. Just so many vivid pictures.
Yeah, and you can see how, within the world of this text, these pronouncements would have been incredibly formative for how the tribes understood themselves, their relationships with each other, their place in the world. It really highlights the perceived weight and enduring legacy of a father's final words in this tradition.
So here's something to think about. If you were one of these tribes, hearing that your ancestor received this specific blessing or criticism from Jacob himself, how might that knowledge, as presented in this text, shape your collective identity? Think about carrying that pronouncement, whether it's about being a leader or scattered or a serpent or a fruitful vine through generations. What kind of impact could that have?